on where you're watching. This is your friendly neighborhood Mike Krupa, the host of the Votum TV Heretics podcast. I want to welcome everyone today, and I will welcome for a second time on our show our special guest, Judge Andrew Napolitano, all the way from, as Al Pacino would say, New York, or New York, as normal people say. Judge, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very happy, Mike, and doubly happy to be on your show. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I hope we can dive into some very interesting topics today. Judge, I want to start off with a quote. I'm just going to share a screen from Twitter over here. I hope everyone can see. It's about just former Congressman Justin Amash's statement about the indictments of President Trump. So I'm going to read into it, and I want to get your take. I may not like Trump, but I love our Constitution, so I feel compelled to speak out. The latest indictment, which encourages everyone to read, attempts to criminalize Trump's routine misstatements of fact and law in connection with the 2020 election. But this is precisely the sort of wrong that must be addressed politically under our Constitution, not criminally. Our system can't survive if political disputes are removed to the criminal realm. There's no limiting principle to such an approach. Remind me again, which former presidents have been indicted for going to war without congressional approval, spying on Americans in violation of the Fourth Amendment, abusing emergency declarations to bypass checks and balances, or ignoring legal advisors to pursue a clearly unlawful policy, end quote. Judge, I want to get your thoughts on that statement by former Congressman Amash.
Well, full disclosure, Justin Amash and I have been friends and colleagues and collaborators for probably 20 years, and I'll even say that I'm a fan of his. I admire his personal courage. I was once speaking to about 2,000 people, and he and Mrs. Amash were in the audience. I didn't know it, and then I saw him there, and I stopped the speech, and I made the people with the lights put a light on him, and I said, in the next edition of Webster's Unabridged Dictionary, under the phrase personal courage will be a photograph of Justin Amash. And of course, the place went crazy, and I believe that with all my heart. I also agree largely with what he is saying. Unfortunately, that's not the law. I have argued since my law school days, which is 50 years ago, that conspiracy prosecutions are really prosecutions for thought crimes. By definition, the crime planned or plotted, as the government claims, never comes to pass. Otherwise, they would charge that underlying crime. So they're basically charging speech and thought. Famous American trial lawyer from the 19th century, Clarence Darrow, once argued to a jury. The numbers are different because this is 150 years ago. If a boy steals a dime, he's not a candidate for the penitentiary. A small fine will do. But if two boys conspire to steal a dime and then don't do it, they are candidates for the penitentiary. What kind of a country does that to its own people? Answer: ours, the United States of America. So the government loves conspiracy charges because they don't have to prove crime. They don't have to prove harm. Normally, the government has to prove harm. The bank was robbed. The bomb went off. The building was destroyed. Somebody was hurt. But in a conspiracy case where the crime never actually occurs, the government only has to show that two or more people talked about this, planned to do it, and at least one of them took at least one step in furtherance of it, but it didn't happen. That's where we are with Trump. Unfortunately, the law, you can blame the Congress for this, permits these conspiracy prosecutions in America. This goes back to the Espionage Act of 1917 in the President Woodrow Wilson era, where many people were prosecuted for conspiracies that never happened, for harm that never came about. Justice Robert Jackson, who was a former attorney general under President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and who left the Supreme Court on a leave of absence for a year and a half to become the chief American prosecutor at the Nuremberg Tribunal, was fond of saying, conspiracy is the garden of the prosecutor's favorite. It's the easiest to prove. When they can't get you on a major crime, they charge you with conspiracy. So that's what they've done with Trump in this case. Now, his lawyers will make the type of arguments that I'm making to the judge, not to the jury, before the trial starts, the judge will deny these motions. These arguments that I'm making is what's called a minority view in America. When I, as a judge, ruled this way, I was always overruled by the appellate courts, always, because the legislature has written these conspiracy crimes into the books, and they're there for the using. It's wrong, it's immoral, it's unjust. It makes us a banana republic.
What are the chances, because I'm hearing some chatter on social media, mostly coming from the Trump camp, that this case can, I think Trump actually wrote about it on Truth Social yesterday, I think, about the potential of this case moving to another jurisdiction, because obviously this judge has a bias against them. Some claim it's because she was nominated by Obama. Some claim it was because she was born outside the United States. How realistic is that attempt to move the case into another jurisdiction at this point?
Very, very slim. In fact, I would say the chances are zero. The Constitution of the United States requires that a defendant in federal court be charged and tried in the jurisdiction where the government says the crime occurred, and that's the Oval Office, so that's Washington, D.C. In terms of getting a jury to come in from somewhere else and sit in Washington, D.C., or getting another judge from this jurisdiction or another jurisdiction, there just isn't enough evidence there to warrant it. I don't blame them for trying. Good criminal trial lawyers know you have to force the trial judge to make as many judgments, rulings, decisions as possible, because she only needs to make a handful of mistakes. And if there's a conviction, then you have those mistakes as a basis for an appeal. So even though a lot of these applications are destined to lose, you are good best practices are you make the applications anyway.
If he's charged, and a lot of people are hoping this will bear the fruit that a lot of people in the establishment want to come about. And Bill Barr said, I think it was on Fox News, that he's toast, he's finished, basically. To those not read into American law as myself, and I'm guessing a lot of our viewers, even if Trump is charged, will this completely make it impossible for him to run in the next presidential election in the United States?
I think it will give the Republicans, even though he has an unbelievably strong base in the Republican Party, pause, because Democrats and independents are not in favor of him. And even though these indictments, as they keep piling up, help him with Republicans, they hurt him with Democrats and independents. A lot of Republicans think, and I accept this view, if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, Joe Biden wins re-election. Because even though Joe Biden's presidency, both domestic policy and foreign policy, are indefensible from a constitutional, legal, political, or moral, or even economic perspective, if Trump is the Republican nominee, the issue will be Trump's personality, character, and alleged criminality, rather than Biden's horrific stewardship of the executive branch of the government. So these indictments do resonate with non-Republicans and with a good number of Republicans, probably not enough to deny him the nomination. As you know, there is a debate about 2/3 of the Republican candidates have qualified for the debate. As of this morning, Trump said he was going to show. Now, I don't know what's going to happen between now and the 23rd of August. If I had a 50% approval rating in the Republican primary, and my closest competitor were down around 22 and everybody else is in the single digits, I wouldn't show either. But apparently he wants to show because he loves the battle.
Just sticking to the issue of what's happened in the last couple of days, the argument that was made by Mike Pence, I think it was also, excuse me, on Fox News, he said that what Trump and his crackpot team of lawyers, as he called them, were trying to make him do was against the Constitution. Now, I can't think of a better mind to actually ask about this, because I never had a chance to personally ask an authority on American law about this. But constitutionally speaking, could Pence have acted in a different way than he acted on January 20th, 2021, in relation to the votes from the states that were to certify the election?
In my view, no, Congress could have. Congress, voting state by state, could have voted to reject the electors from Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, whatever the states were that Trump alleged he truly won. That would not be unprecedented, but it would have been absolutely unprecedented for the vice president to have done so. Again, full disclosure, Mike Pence and I have been friends for 35 years, since we did radio together, before he was in the Congress, before he was the governor of Indiana, and obviously before he was vice president. And though I don't agree with him on a lot of things, not the least of which is his rejection of Roman Catholicism, but that's another story for another time. I like him as a person. Nevertheless, I think he's correct. He did not have the authority to do what Trump asked, but Congress could have.
Right. I watched your interview with former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. As a fan of The Sopranos, I couldn't have missed that interview, so I had to watch it. But and I guess former Governor Chris Christie also was a big fan of the show. I mean, it was a big commercial for the Garden State, in essence. But he wrote a book. I think it was after he sort of left the Trump circle. It was called Please Let Me Speak, about Bannon, the Kushners, and so on. He did prosecute, from what I remember, Jared Kushner's father back in the day. I think he actually put him in jail for some time. I'm hearing news that I think I saw a headline yesterday evening that apparently the duo Jarvanka are now considering a return to politics in light of surging or the popularity that Trump still retains. Are you hearing anything on your end that the Kushners are planning a comeback politically beside Trump?
Well, I have not heard that, but a comeback would mean not that either of them is going to run for office, but that they will work for her father, Jared's father-in-law, and perhaps work in the administration. Right. There is no love lost between the Kushners and Governor Christie. I mean, when he was the chief federal prosecutor in New Jersey, he was personally present. This is unheard of, at the 7 a.m. arrest. From the dinner table was a breakfast table in front of the entire family, with Jared sitting there about to eat some scrambled eggs. And Governor Christie, or then U.S. Attorney Christie, was physically there as the FBI broke in to arrest the father. That apparently has seared an image in Jared's brain, which is unforgettable, and I gather unforgivable. And that may have resulted in Governor Christie not getting an appointment that he wanted in the Trump administration. I don't know that the two of them particularly help President Trump. He may enjoy their company and may value their guidance. They're both very smart young people, but I don't think they move the dial at all. So if they're entering the fray is to harm Christie, I think it doesn't affect Christie at all. Now, he's another longtime friend of mine, but his numbers are in the single digits. I mean, he's hoping for a knockout blow, so to speak, in the debate in order to distinguish himself from the rest of the pack. There's Trump at 50%. Right. There's DeSantis at 22%. And then there's about 8 or 9 of them, including Mike Pence. I don't know if Mike Pence is going to make the debate, because you have to have 40,000 individual contributors. So they can contribute as little as $1, but you have to have 40,000 of them. The rest of them are in the single digits. Christie has to distinguish himself from all of them with this so-called knockout blow.
Right. Recently, RFK Jr. switching topics right now from the Republican Party to the Democrat Party, although some people are saying that there is this conspiracy theory that RFK Jr. is somehow a Republican agent inside the Democratic Party. But recently, RFK took some heat from a lot of progressives, and I would say independent-minded libertarians, like our friend Daniel McAdams, for example, the head of the Ron Paul Institute on Twitter. He did an event with a guy who calls himself America's Rabbi Shmuley Batich, I think is his name. And he stated that, well, not in so many words, but he wrote an article before that support for Israel basically has to be unconditional. Now, you have Phil Giraldi on your show very often. Phil is a very prolific writer on the influence of the Israel lobby I noticed that Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone has challenged Bobby to a debate on this. It came as a surprise to a lot of people because I even wrote an article last week where I praised RFK's message on peace and I actually invited him to come to Warsaw for some pierogies and a peace speech. What do you make of this latest sort of controversy on the big Middle Eastern topic? Do you think we can expect a sort of a further explanation from RFK on this, or is he going to double down on his right or wrong but firm support for Israel?
Well, again, I keep saying this. Bobby is a friend of mine, and I am an admirer of his and a cheerleader for him, because I think if he's elected, or even if he's nominated, he will break the stranglehold that the war party has on the government. The war party is, 90% of the Republicans and 90% of the Democrats in the Congress. There are libertarians on the right and progressives on the left in the Congress that oppose war, but it's a small percentage. Bobby will break that stranglehold. I disagree with him on Israel, right or wrong. I mean, I don't even think Israel is a democracy anymore, or it's in danger of no longer becoming, I should say, a democracy under a Prime Minister Netanyahu. And another person who's been a friend of mine for years is Bibi Netanyahu. I disagree with him politically. Roger Ailes used to say, you got to have friends on the other side of the aisle. You have to have friends with people you disagree with. So I'm not one of those people who only has friends that agree with him. If that were the case, I'd be a very lonely person. But I disagree with Bobby on this. The farther Israel migrates away from being a true democracy, the less worthy it is of our support. Now, I'm opposed to nearly all foreign aid, not just the billions we give to Israel, but the billions we give to everybody to sort of bribe their leaders. I'm not in favor of any of that. But Bobby and his family, we all know how his father died. We all know who the government says killed his father. We all know why the government claims that person killed his father. Bobby believes his father was killed by an American intelligence community plot. But nevertheless, the Kennedy family and Israel have been locked in with each other, going back to RFK Sr. and JFK himself.
It's actually interesting in terms of because Bobby himself, just sticking to the topic for a minute here, he mentioned that his father and JFK were very pro-Israel. However, as a historian, I tend to point things out in my head. But just for our audience also, there's an interesting case whereby when he was Attorney General, RFK actually wanted to register the I forgot the name right now, but the chief Zionist organization in the United States at the time as a foreign lobby. Unfortunately, due to the influence of another lobby, he wasn't able to do it. And then after that, we had the whole issue of AIPAC. So even there, the wholehearted commitment to Israel on the part of the Kennedys is somewhat it's not as firm as maybe some people would have us believe. But obviously, they weren't an enemy. But there are some nuances that I think that need to be pointed out in terms of historical accuracy, which is good. I think we need this discussion. And in terms of foreign aid, believe me, I would love, as a Polish patriot, to have all the money coming from Washington cut off from Poland too. So amen to that. In terms of what's happening in American public opinion, Judge, I saw a headline also on CNN, by the way, that's finally admitting that a majority of Americans now completely, they don't want to support Ukraine anymore. They think this is harming American interests. They think this is harming Ukraine and actually prolonging the war. You're in New York, you're in the Big Apple. Are you sensing these vibes coming from the regular folk that, we've crossed the Rubicon here and we have enough?
Well, I wish I were. I don't sense that yet. I'm actually in New Jersey, which is next door to New York. And since I left Fox, I'm not in New York City, which is the heartthrob of media in America, on a daily basis any longer. I know that people are getting impatient, just like NATO is getting impatient. But I also know that Joe Biden wants to run for re-election as a wartime president, like his hero FDR, and he seems to think that by having Ukrainian boys kill Russian boys, somehow this is going to assure his reelection. But his people are not having a good time of explaining this to Americans. About 2 weeks ago, they all took up the same mantra. Joe Biden, Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of Great Britain. They all said the same thing. Putin has lost. Putin has lost. Putin has lost already. This is absurd. This is a preposterous thing to say. This is right out of George Orwell's 1984. But they kept saying it for week after week after week. Perhaps they sensed this tide against them beginning to emerge. I hope it does emerge. The Congress, I guess, anticipating this tide back when the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate was a tie, often broken in favor of the Democrats. They gave Joe a blank check for $113 billion to spend however he wanted in Ukraine. Now, he claims he spent 48. Some independent calculations say he spent 68. The Defense Department keeps coming out saying, well, we wrongly evaluated this. We have a few billion more than we thought we had. So nobody really knows what the truth is. But the point here is he does not need to go back to the Congress for more money, I don't think, between now and November of 2024. Now, if he's reelected, who knows what he'll do? Who knows what party will control Congress? So he seems to have the wherewithal to fight this, even if there is no political will to do it. But if he's fighting against public opinion, like you're a historian, LBJ in Vietnam, this is just not going to work for him. Now, LBJ was confronted with 50,000 body bags, 500,000 American men, 52,000 dead. So far, I haven't seen any American body bags. There are rumors of some Americans having been killed, but no ostentatious demonstration of their bodies being returned to view on television.
Is it your belief that, because you mentioned LBJ, and a lot of people are asking the question, I think not only in the United States, but globally, if come March, for example, 2024, we're not going to hear Joe Biden say what the LBJ said in March of 68. I will not seek the nomination of my party as your president. What do you think, Judge?
I don't think he's going to run. I think the Democrats are going to say, Joe, you just can't win, and we cannot afford Donald Trump in the White House. And even though he might have been convicted by a certain date, it looks like the Republicans are crazy enough to nominate him. I'm mouthing what Democrats will say to him. It's also time for a new generation, and that time is now. It's not 4 years from now. That might actually resonate with him. Again, I know him very well. We were on the faculty of Delaware Law School together. I was a full-time young professor. I was 26 years old. He was an adjunct. He didn't really belong on a law school faculty, but everybody liked him. He was a nice guy. Fast forward, I would ride on the train with him when Fox was sending me from from New York down to Washington, D.C. But the Joe Biden that I knew was a JFK type, middle of the road, moderate, practicing Catholic, compromiser, disdained the crazies on the left as much as he disdained conservatives and libertarians on the right. Today he's totally captured by the hard left of his party, because without that hard left, they're a minority party. But I do think that even they will come to him and say, Joe, time's up. And I think that will happen sometime in the next year, and Ukraine may play a pivotal role in it.
And final question, if not Joe, then we're hearing Michelle Obama. What do you think?
I am hearing Michelle Obama, or some combination of Michelle Obama and the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Now, if there's one place in the United States that's worse than the rest of the United States in every respect, crime, culture, taxes, it's California. I mean, that is truly indefensible if the Democrats are crazy enough to nominate him. We have a lefty loony governor here in New Jersey who's fabulously rich and could finance his own campaign, Phil Murphy. He would love to take on Gavin Newsom for the Democratic nomination. Michelle Obama could have it for the asking. We are also hearing somebody else who might be able to have it for the asking. You'll know why I'm smiling in a minute. Mrs. Clinton.
Wow. Pat Buchanan wrote a book on Nixon, The Greatest Comeback. This would be, I think, the greatest comeback.
Yes, it would be.
Wow. I think Prigozhin is going to have to get his fake farm going up again of trolls. All joking aside. Judge, thank you very much for your time once again as reporting on the State of the Union. We hope to have you on our show once again soon as things develop in the United States. Guys, make sure to give Judge Napolitano a follow on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to his channel, Judging Freedom. Great panelists. A lot of them you see here. Also Ray McGovern, Doug McGregor, all the greats. So, and also give us a like, give us a sub. And if you support our work, please give us a contribution on Revolut. It helps to grow the channel. And we're hoping to expand fairly soon. Judge, thank you once again. Hope you have a great day. God bless.
Thank you. I think your viewers should know you are a hero to the people that follow Judging Freedom and the people that believe in small government, maximum individual liberty, and peace. Thank you, Mike.
Grazie. Thank you very much, Judge.
Thank
God
you.
bless you guys. Have a good one. Take care.
You as well.